So that's supposed to be sung to the Beastie Boys, so you can hum the tune to your head, in your head if you'd like, while I get situated here. So I'm not going to sing it for you this morning. So good morning, I'm Drew Shenkman. I'm an attorney for CNN in the United States, based in Atlanta. I am what you might call a media lawyer. So what does that mean? That means that I vet the news before we publish it. There's only a few of us at CNN that do what I do. And primarily, I work with our DC bureau, and I'm also working a lot with our Russia reporting. So pretty busy these days. But half of what I do is helping our journalists get access to the records that they want. And this is one of my favorite sayings: history is written by the victors, right? We all know what that means. But there's a corollary to that, unless there's a contemporaneous record that tells a different tale, right? So the victors can say whatever they want, or whoever's in charge can say whatever they want. But if we have a contemporaneous record saying something different, then obviously, as journalists, we can report that. So who keeps the records? In the United States, there's basically two places that we send our journalists to go look for this information, either with the government themselves or in the courts. Those are the two places in the United States that are very open. And there are laws for both of those, and we'll talk about each of those. So first, government records. In the United States, there are basically two sets of laws out there that give our journalists access to the information that they seek from the government. On the national level, there's the Federal Freedom of Information Act. That applies to the federal government and applies across the country to federal entities. Then each individual state plus the District of Columbia has their own state public records laws. And so we use each of these in tandem to go out and report stories. They're generally the same thing. The law can be a little bit different. The reason why these exist are two reasons. The Federal Freedom of Information Act came about post-Watergate, when everybody in the United States decided that we needed a little more openness and transparency given what had happened in the Nixon administration. The state laws are a little bit older, and they come from the Jeffersonian ideal of an educated and well-informed public makes the best decisions, right? We're a democracy, you need information to be able to understand what's going on in that democracy. But I'll be honest, our public records laws in the United States, they sound great, but they're really broken. It's the right to know, and that is not, that basically tells the tale, right? The right to know. All of the public records laws have lots of exemptions. There are exemptions for national security. There are exemptions for ongoing police investigations. There's lots of reasons why a public official can say no. And my job is to help make them say yes. One of my journalists the other day, when I was telling her about this talk, slacked me this little saying. She said, I have 10 FOIAs I want to file, but I'm like, what's the point? They'll sit there for 2 years, and the FOIA office will want to kill me. So it's very optimistic, and she's one of our best FOIA power users. But this illustrates one of the issues that we face, which is it takes a lot of time to do this, and a lot of resources. There are time periods that the FOIA laws permit, and government officials usually take every single day that they get to respond to the requests. Sometimes they don't respond at all, daring us to sue. There also are, like I said, exemptions, which means that we get Swiss cheese documents, like you see here. Everything's redacted, right, except some of the basic information. So how do you report on that? And then also, as you can see here, they can charge. And in fact, a lot of the places, a lot of the state laws that we face can charge us just for searching for records. And if they actually don't have any records, they can still charge us. So there's lots of roadblocks along the way. And as a lawyer, I'm here to help our journalists navigate that and fight back when necessary. So I'm going to talk about some examples here, mostly within the last year of things that we've done at CNN to procure public records from government. So you may have seen in October of last year, 58 people were gunned down in Las Vegas on the Strip when Stephen Paddock from a hotel room on the Mandalay Bay shot down into a country music festival and killed a lot of people. And one of the issues that we faced was, what was the police response like? Well, the Las Vegas Police Department was not helpful. They did not want to give any of the records that we wanted. Every police officer in Las Vegas wears body cams now, and so there was actual contemporaneous evidence of what happened, how the police responded to this incident. We couldn't get it, so we had to sue. And we sued with a lot of our media friends. You can see them all listed here. And we went after search warrants, body camera footage, and the way we got to success here was we basically got the court to agree that there was no longer an ongoing investigation because Stephen Paddock was the only shooter. The Las Vegas police knew that. They were not investigating anybody else. And so we forced the Las Vegas Police Department to come out and say, we're not looking for anybody else. We don't think anybody else is involved in this. And so we got all these records unsealed. But wait, there's more. The Las Vegas Police Department said, okay, fine, we lost, but it's going to take us 6 months to get all the stuff to you, and it's going to cost you almost $500,000 to get it. Talk about a barrier to information, right? So we kept on pressing, and they appealed. Some great breaking news happened last night, or actually last week. The state Supreme Court said to the Las Vegas Police Department, no, you have to comply with the lower court's order that said that CNN and all these other media entities are allowed to get this information. You can't charge them that much. You need to give it to them. And last night, we finally got our very first submission from the Las Vegas Police Department while I was sleeping of some body cam footage of the officers going into Stephen Paddock's room. So just last night, we had great success in this case. Here's another unfortunate shooting in the United States. As you all know, probably, we had a terrible school shooting in Parkland, Florida, at Stoneman Douglas High School. 17 students and a teacher was shot. And as you probably saw, the United States gun debate has been raging for the better part of the last couple months since this happened in February. And when this happened, we immediately sprung to action, put in our public records requests, and in the state of Florida, there's really good transparency. There's not the same kind of roadblocks we saw in Las Vegas, except that then this happened. Basically, it came out that a school resource officer, the officer that was assigned to the school, was present at the time of the shooting and didn't go into the building.
We're not going to disclose the video at this time, and we may never disclose the video, depending on the prosecution and the criminal case. Well, what I saw was a deputy arrive at the west side of Building 12, take up a position, and he never went in.
So that's the sheriff of Broward County, Florida, saying that this whole incident was caught on video. The school had surveillance cameras, right, much like this building probably has, that showed everything that happened contemporaneous as it was going on. And so this school resource officer was basically fired. He resigned, but he was shamed publicly for this, and so we wanted to be able to see the evidence. What did it actually look like? That we heard rumors that other officers also were there, did not go in. So we needed to be able to see this to judge for ourselves whether this was true or not. But as you heard the sheriff say, we weren't going to get it. He wasn't going to release those videos. And so we had to sue. So we sued with a couple of our media partners, the Miami Herald and the Sun Sentinel, the newspapers down in South Florida, and tried to get the actual surveillance video from outside the school. Now, we told the court we don't want to see the students running out. We didn't even want to see the shooter. We just wanted to see the law enforcement response. They could redact everything. So the judge agreed. The judge looked at the video and said, yes, CNN, Miami Herald, Sun Sentinel, you can get this video. And so we got it.
This edited surveillance video, seen by the public for the first time, appears to show the Broward Sheriff's deputy assigned to protect the school standing outside as the mass shooting unfolded inside. Police records show that at 2:21, gunman Nicholas Cruz enters the building and begins shooting. 1 minute later, Officer Scott Peterson is seen near an administration building and turns around. At 2:23, while the shooter was killing students and teachers, Peterson appears to move on a golf cart and can be observed standing in between the 700 building and the 800 building, an area that's by the 1200 building where the shooting took place. Peterson has said he believed at one point the shots were being fired from outside, but dispatch audio from him indicates otherwise.
We also heard it over by inside the 1200 building.
Inside, Cruz continues his rampage, firing his weapon more than 6 minutes, stopping just before Peterson says this.
No, you're not approach the 12 or 1300 building. Stay at least 500 feet away at this point.
Now you heard our reporter say at the top that it was edited. We got the video, and it was only the pieces of the video that the sheriff's office wanted us to see. They didn't give us the whole raw thing. So we had to go back to the court and sue again for the rest of the video that we thought we were entitled to in the first place. That's up on appeal, and we'll see what happens. On the federal level, you might have seen this guy, James Comey, in the news recently. He wrote the Comey memos memorializing his discussions with President Trump. And we said, hey, those are public records too. So we sued the FBI to get those. Unfortunately, we didn't win that one. But what did happen during that lawsuit is that the court asked for a bunch of evidence from Robert Mueller's team, and he did it in secret. So it's sealed, but there's this contemporaneous record out there. So even though the memos have now been released, right, Congress leaked them, we're still going to go after the testimony by the special counsel's office that happened in secret. So stay tuned on that. One other thing, Puerto Rico, which is a U.S. territory, but doesn't, the federal FOIA doesn't apply there. They don't have a public records law. We found lots of problems in getting the number of people that were dead after Hurricane Maria there. And so we actually had to sue for those records based on the Puerto Rican Constitution's right to receive information. And so that's still in the courts. Now, as far as court records, right, so those are laws that allow us to get government documents. These are laws that are a history and tradition of openness in the United States in court to get documents for testimony or court proceedings and the right to receive that information. Because if you just think about it, trials were always open in the United States and people used to go to them. People might not go anymore, but the theory is that the media is a surrogate of the people in the United States, and the right to attend and receive information from court applies to the media. So here we had then candidate Trump giving testimony in a deposition over his Trump hotel that two restaurateurs pulled out of, and he sued them because of his controversial remarks on immigrants. And we sued for this deposition video. He and his campaign put up a fight saying that it would be used against them in negative attack ads, and therefore it shouldn't be released. But we got it successfully released, and you heard for the first time then candidate Trump talking about his remarks about immigrants in a deposition. Another interesting thing that we did recently is we had a court reporter talk about the differences between the Mueller investigation now and what was going on with President Clinton then when he was being investigated for the Lewinsky matter. And we found a bunch of sealed cases in the DC circuit, the DC court actually, that were related to the Clinton matter 20 years ago. And we wanted to compare that time to how President Trump might deal with a subpoena in the coming year. And so we found all these cases were sealed. I wrote a letter to the chief judge saying, will you pretty please unseal them? And before we knew it, we had a court matter where we had President Clinton responding, we had the Department of Justice responding, and we got 11 cases unsealed. So that was pretty fun. And then lastly, in the news, you might have seen Michael Cohen, who is the president's personal lawyer, and he's had, his office recently was raided by the FBI.
It came out last week that Trump's personal lawyer, Michael Cohen, who is now in deep federal investigation shit, only had 3 clients in the past year. Right? The president, who Cohen helped to pay off a porn star that he had an affair with. His second client, a major GOP fundraiser named Elliot Brody, who Cohen also helped to pay off a playmate that he had an affair with. Right? And then Michael Cohen had 1 more client. Right? Out of 7 billion people, 7 billion people, who could have wanted to join this club and use Michael Cohen as a lawyer last year? Only 1 other person did. And this person's identity was a complete mystery until today.
This is CNN Breaking News.
We are now getting word the lawyer for the president, Michael Cohen, has just disclosed in court that the client who had requested to remain unnamed was Sean Hannity of Fox News.
So as you can see, there's a big news thing. Sean Hannity is a big host for Fox News. He is very anti-CNN, very pro-Trump, and it was a big surprise. But this only came about because CNN and a bunch of other media outlets sent a lawyer to the court that day, because we didn't know what was going to happen and what was going to happen there, but we knew that some of the stuff was going to be sealed, not open to the public. And so we sent a lawyer in anticipation of something possibly happening. Never did we expect that to happen. We did not go knowing that Sean Hannity was the secret client that he was hiding. That was just an amazing moment, though. And our lawyer stood up in the back of the courtroom and said, "Your Honor, I need to make an argument on behalf of the media. We have a right to receive this information." And the judge agreed and forced Michael Cohen to reveal that Sean Hannity was his client. So that's a fun way to get information in court. It was a really cool success story. So a couple lessons learned from what I do. First of all, resources matter, right? So if you're an independent journalist, you might not have a lawyer like me, and that's okay. But we have to agree that resources matter in this. It also takes time and resiliency. A lot of these battles took place over a course of months, right? Or even years sometimes. We have to cast a lot of lines. So these are just some of the stories that we do. There are lots of other ones that we're working on that haven't really hit yet. So these are the mostly success stories that we've dealt with. And then creativity matters. So the Clinton Lewinsky stories that I was talking about before, that was a creative news story that one of our reporters came up with. Who would have thought 20 years ago records would have been relevant to today, but they are. And then finally, take chances. You can always send out a FOIA, you can always send out public records requests, is what I tell my journalists, and see what happens. They're free. So that's it, thank you very much.
We also have rights. We don't only have duties or need to pay taxes. Thank you for reminding us, Mr. Shenkman. We have rights. So, besides what Mr. Shenkman shared with us as his learnings, what are yours after his speech? You're gonna love this tool until the end of the day. Well,
every time I see how much you have to pay for any kind of public information, I pray to God that Ukrainian state officials did not come up with this idea, because it's free so far, but I'm very afraid they're going to learn your cases. And we actually have the same issues. Like, I'm working for an anti-corruption NGO, that we have to go to court to get some of the additional information, like from the security service, and then we can publish it.
throw it with another person? Well, for me, or myself.
You can use, okay, can you explain it? Okay, it's a public information. So, it's public.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, I got it. So it's public information. So so how come it is public information that it's free? It should be free because we pay taxes. Americans pay taxes also, and it's the biggest democracy as far as I know until now.
Yeah. Great question. I agree with you. It should be free. The theory goes that not only do we pay taxes, but government is not a finite, infinite resource. And so the government argues that, for example, the Parkland shooting, the school shooting, we got a lot of resistance from the Broward Police Department because they said, you're going to take the officers off the streets and out of the schools to respond to this public records request. Now, of course, our argument back is, well, that's ridiculous. You need to have the appropriate people on your staff to be able to do this. These are laws that you have to comply with. And so if you're not in compliance, then you need to hire more people. But again, that goes to the government isn't an infinite resource. And so where are they going to get the money to hire people? And we go around in circles on that. But it's a great question. And that's why CNN pays me to do what I do, because they know that they're going to get pushback, right? And so it's my job to push back.